Hello everybody, hello from Cosmic Agency. This is Gosia, Agencia Cósmica in Spanish. And I'm here with Honovi. She will soon say her name properly because I'm pretty sure I'm not pronouncing your full name properly. As I have some of your introduction, but I will then give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. She is a medicine woman. She is an ET contact ambassador. Super interesting. She helps people get on track with their soul blueprint and purpose for being here. And she also helps people reconnect and tap into their multidimensional awareness. And also, what's very interesting, we will talk about this in detail. She channels light language and non-linear high-dimensional language. Very, very cool. Well, I have some questions prepared, but whatever comes up and whatever you want to share, I'm open to that. So, Honovi, first, what's your name? Where are you from? If you want to mention your terrestrial origins, and maybe you can start explaining a bit about yourself and how did this all start, the ET contact and etc.
Yes, my sister, thank you for having me on this call today. It's really beautiful to connect with you. So, yes, you did pronounce my name correct. It's Honovi. And the name is actually a Native American name. It's from the Hopi tribe. And it actually means strong deer. But my ethnic origin is another type of Indian. I'm originally from India as it relates to the continent of Asia, but I was born in the UK, and I have also lived in China and Singapore, and now I live in wonderful Peru. So when people are asking me, where are you from? I really find it a challenge to answer the question because really in my heart, I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. But of course, for conversation's sake, my family of origin is from India, which has got a lot of wonderful spiritual information. And I feel like many people of my generation and younger, they identify as being a citizen of the world. They don't feel like they have loyalty to one part of the world. In fact, many of us now, we feel like we are connected with multiple places because maybe we grew up in one country, but our family is from another place or something like this.
Yes, definitely. I can actually totally agree with you, and I share that feeling. Actually, which actually I get myself into trouble with my parents because my parents I'm from Poland and they are very patriotic, and we grew up during the communist times when people were united and fighting against the communism. So when I say I don't necessarily feel that strong, I don't want to say connection because I do feel connected to my home place in some way, but I don't subscribe to the idea that I am Polish. Like I feel my spirit is from beyond, and I am a universal being. So I don't want to limit myself this way. So I completely understand. Now. Let's go to your ET contacts, okay? Who exactly do you contact with? How did this start? In what way do you contact with them? Do you see them physically? Do you channel, etc.?
Yes. Just before I answer that
Yes.
question, I just wanted to say that it's interesting because sometimes it feels like many of us in our human incarnation, we can become very attached to our nationality. And it's not something bad or wrong, but it can create some conflicts with other people. Or, I feel what we are being encouraged to do is to honor our roots, because I feel like we specifically are choosing particular cultures and nationalities. Our spirit is choosing them because each culture has certain agreements about reality. It's almost like when you are hopping from one country to another, it's like a mini universe. There are different agreements and rules. So it's interesting to ask yourself, why did my spirit choose this particular culture or nationality? So it's kind of like we're here to honor that incarnation, but at the same time, not to attach to it too much, right? Because, like you said, we are much more than that. But going to your question about the extraterrestrials and how it all began, the beings I'm in contact with, they are from the star Sirius, and it all started in 2010. Sometimes these beings actually refer to themselves as the guardians, the ancient ones, the creators, and they even gave me a name. They actually said to me, we do not have a name, but they know that the humans love to compartmentalize everything. And the humans love to, put things in boxes so it's all neat and we can understand it. So they also gave me the name Arya. And they said to look up the name Arya because it actually has a meaning in the English language. It is meant to be a solo accompaniment, singing a solo, and sometimes having an orchestra or instrumental supporting that accompaniment. And it's quite fitting that they chose this name Arya because literally sometimes when I am channeling them, it literally sounds like I am singing. It's quite funny. The way they communicate, they love to communicate through vibration and through sound. And in 2010, when it all began, I had no context for what was happening, so I did not realize that I was being contacted by star beings. I was in bed relaxing, and suddenly I heard this very high-pitched sound. And it was like a tone, and it was going ee, and it ee, even higher, more and more high. I was lying in my bed, and I was thinking, what on earth is this sound? And then suddenly the sound was followed by a static noise, kind of like when you put the TV on, and it's going like this, right? And then that was followed by a white flash of light and what seemed to be like, I can only describe like a ball of energy.
Were you alone in a room?
Yes, I was actually in my grandmother's room. My grandmother was in India and I missed her. So I decided to come downstairs because I was in my family's home at the time and we have 3 floors. So it's very interesting that it happened in my grandmother's room because after it happened, I immediately went to my mother and asked her, what's going on. I explained to her what is happening to me. Maybe, I don't know, if I was on the 3rd floor, it would have been more difficult for me to do that. So it's interesting that these beings kind of, I don't believe in accidents, selected for me to be in my grandmother's room when it happened. And so this ball of energy came through what seemed like to be the crown chakra area, and it felt like electricity was moving through my body. It felt like liquid electricity, if that makes sense. And at the time, I was completely paralyzed and I could not move. Bearing in mind, people say to me, sometimes some people say, were you on drugs or had you been drinking or something? And I can verify that no, I don't actually drink alcohol really, and at the time I had not even begun working with plant medicines. This happened back in 2010. So it just happened very naturally. I was just relaxing in my bed. And then I was paralyzed, I could not speak, I could not move, and I began to feel frightened actually because this thought came into my head and I suddenly thought, this is what must happen when you die. and I was very confused because I was thinking, why am I dying right now? I don't understand, And so this fear came in, suddenly I felt a lot of fear, but then I began to relax because there was an inner knowing that if I was dying, there was much more to this universe than this, physical reality. So I began to relax more. And as I began to relax, suddenly this energy, it hit a crescendo point, and my body that was lying down like that, it actually convulsed, it moved. I remember moving like this. And as my body moved, I actually began to have an out-of-body experience, and my, what we call subtle body or light body, began to rise up out of my physical body. But what happened was only half of my body was rising up and the other half was stuck. And of course, I was just very confused as to what was happening to me. So then I went, bam, straight back into my body. And at the time, I still could not move, and I was trying to figure out what was happening. And I somehow broke the paralysis, and I got up. I started pacing around the room, thinking to myself, what just happened there? I don't understand. And I tried to calm myself down because I had all this adrenaline and emotion and anxiety. And then I decided to actually lie back down. And what happened was the same thing that I just spoke about happened about 7 to 8 times. So I would like hear these noises, I would feel all this energy in my body, and I would start to leave my body. And it was almost as though it happened repeatedly, as if the universe was saying, no, you're not imagining it. No, you're not asleep. You know what I mean? It was kind of strange. And after like the 8th or 9th time, I was kind of concerned. So I went and knocked on my mother's room. I said, Mother, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if I'm dying or what. You know, this energy came into my body. I don't know if something is trying to possess me. And I was very frightened. And then I started to cry. I think just because of the shock, you know. I was just crying. My mother looked quite alarmed. And she was like patting my head saying, oh, it's okay. It's just a dream, you know. And I said, no, it wasn't a dream. I was fully conscious. And so after that day, my whole life changed. Basically, after that day, I became what some people might call extrasensory. So after that day, my body changed, and I would feel energy in my body all the time. Like I'm speaking to you now, and I can feel like electricity in my body. But I did not feel that before I had the experience. And I did not know until later that it was my guides or these star beings that kind of came and activated what you might call my Kundalini energy, making me more receptive to their frequency, making it easier for me to communicate with them.
Were you spiritual in any way before that experience? Were you interested in these topics already?
Yes, ever since I was a young girl. I was fortunate because I was born into a family that is very spiritually orientated. Like we said earlier, the Indian culture has so much spiritual information. But there's also, you know, for every culture or for every part of the world, there is a plus and a minus. Even though there is so much beautiful, progressive spiritual information in Indian culture, there's also a lot of dogma, you know, which also created a conflict in me. And just to expand upon how this all began, so that happened in 2010, and if we fast forward to 2016, that's when I began to work with the plant teachers like Ayahuasca. And on my second ceremony, I had a very intense what we might call initiation or activation, and this is when the light language actually started to come through. But it's funny because I had dreams that I was speaking light language, but again I had no context for what that was, you know. Only until later I actually heard a man in the UK speaking this light language, and I was like, oh, what is that? It sounds so familiar. And then shortly after, I did a ceremony in the UK, and that's when these sounds came through. These beings, they're very loving, and they actually said to me, you know, you don't have to be frightened. We are with you, and we are for you. And they said, we want to work with your vocal range to see what your range is. And I was like, okay. And so in the ceremony, my voice just started to spontaneously make these noises like ah, ooh, like this, you know. And I was thinking to myself, what's going on? And they were just saying, relax, we're just seeing what your range is. And then the light language started to come out, and it was so natural and so familiar. And then some English words also come out. And the first English words that came out, they said, "We are from Sirius. We are returning. The hybrid children are coming."
In that intonation.
Yes, that is how they communicated.
It's
It really
amazing.
sounds like almost like singing when they expressed for me.
Now I have a question. Let's go back to that night, because it was a night, right? When you had that first experience, that electricity
It
and the
was.
light. So you
Yes.
were scared, you were crying, and then what happened next? I mean, at what point did you actually hear the words, and did you integrate that this was the serious being talking to you?
Well,
Continue
this
with
did
that.
not happen. Yes, this did not happen until 6 years later that
Oh
I found
no!
out that it was these star beings. Because at the time, after the experience, and because I wasn't crying during the experience, it was more like afterwards, like I let the experience sink in, and it was like a shock for my human conditioning, you know. And I was crying to my mother saying, you know, this thing happened to me. I was leaving my body. I don't know what was going on. And now I don't feel the same. I'm feeling electric currents running through my body constantly, 24/7. And it was funny because the next night, it was almost like I had opened some kind of portal, because I went and slept with my sister, and we started hearing very strange noises in the room. We heard like the sound of someone running their fingers along, you know, when you have the blinds coming down like this, it makes a particular sound when you actually run across it like that. We heard that sound, and we heard some strange noises coming from the corner, and my sister got very scared, and she said, "What have you done?" And I said, "I don't know what has happened. It's almost like some portal has opened, and maybe these beings, whoever is there, whether they are spirits or whatever, they're trying to now communicate with me." And so after that, a lot of unusual things started happening. So I was constantly feeling energy. I was at nighttime. I actually, shortly after the experience, I relocated to Singapore in Asia, and that was crazy. When I was living in Singapore, I had to sleep with the light on, because every time I would turn it off, again, I would start hearing voices, footsteps, people whistling, and I would get up and out of my bed and say, "Whoever is here, leave me alone. You know, I have to go to work tomorrow." And it was almost like the activation of this energy had opened me up to this whole other world, and my conditioning, I wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I had this foundation of spiritual kind of literature and growing up in this Indian culture, but nothing quite prepares you, you know, for when you're having direct experiences. And of course, there's a lot of fear in our civilization, in our society. So I had a lot of fear initially. But then what began to happen was, all of a sudden, I developed a strong interest in the extraterrestrial and UFO phenomena. I don't know why. I think what was happening was these beings were kind of, you know, sending me thought impulses or directing me in certain areas, like towards certain books and teachers and things like that. And it wasn't confirmed to me that it was actually these star beings until only just last year, in 2016. That's when it was all confirmed and the pieces all started to make sense. So, because what happened after the experience, I was going through a very hard time in my everyday life. I was going through a very challenging breakup emotionally with my ex-partner, and I think because of what I was going through, these beings were having a hard time reaching me, because my vibration and my energy was not in a good place at that time, you see.
I understand. Well, so you said only like last year in 2016 it was confirmed to you that those were those beings. So when did you first start channeling from those beings? Also 1 year ago?
Yes.
Okay, so when did you receive like the first message from them that it was clear that it was from them? And how did you know it was from them?
You know what? Actually, it was happening before the plant ceremonies. So the plant ceremonies, they began in August 2016. But I was receiving little bits of communication from them. For instance, around 2014, I was, again, I think, visiting my family, and I was meditating, and suddenly this energy that I constantly feel in my body, it began to grow more until it hit a crescendo. What happens at night time, this energy seems to grow stronger. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because people are like sleeping then, and then it's easier for them to get through. I don't know. And so what happened was, this energy that I always feel, it became stronger, and then suddenly I saw an image of what seemed to be an extraterrestrial in in what you might call third eye or your mind's eye. And the image was of a being that was blue, and they had very, very little hair, just a little bit of hair, almost bald, and they had like some kind of unusual patterns on their face, and their eyes was the color, like a yellow color. The pupils were like snake, or like cat's eyes. The pupils were like this, you know, as opposed to round.
Like almond shape.
Say again?
Like almond shape eyes.
Yes. And I was just kind of I was quite shocked at the time. I remember what happened after that is they began to send me visuals. They began to send me pictures of many different cities all across the world with very recognizable icons. So like Paris came up, London, Los Angeles, New Delhi. And I was thinking, what? So what's going on? I don't understand. Especially, you know, our human logical, analytical mind kicks in, right? And I was thinking, what are they doing? I don't understand. And so that, and after that, it stopped. It was literally lasted about 5 to 8 minutes, the whole experience. And also, before that experience, I also had unusual dream experiences where I would interact with what seemed to be like some kind of energetic being in my dream. I would get given certain guidance, because normally these beings, they already are contacting you in you know, the dream state, and then they will kind of find different avenues according to how ready you are for more contact. But what happened was, when I started working with the plant medicine in 2016, it all just went to another level, like never before. And I actually started to verbally, they actually were able to come through me verbally, which had never happened before. One of the reasons they told me it's because when you're working with the plants, you are literally raising your frequency and entering into communion with these higher dimensions. And they told me that they are a very high frequency, which I kind of knew anyway, because when I'm in contact with them, my whole body starts to shake and vibrate with this energy. And so I know that they have been encouraging me and other people who are in contact with these different beings to make adjustments in our lifestyle so we can accommodate this very high frequency that's coming through.
What kind of adjustments do they ask us to do?
I think the number one adjustment is following what's most exciting and joyful and childlike and curious for us, because when we are doing that, it's really lining us up with certain events and people that we are kind of destined to encounter in this lifetime. Other things are like honoring yourself, what's in resonance for you, you know, saying yes to things that resonate and no to things that don't. You know, looking after your physical body and your nutrition, you know, all the base level stuff. But the one that comes through the most is they're very playful energy that comes through. I am often laughing when I'm channeling because their frequency is so high. Sometimes I'm having trouble to stay focused. It takes a lot of practice to stay focused with their energy, because these beings, they said they are coming from 9th through to 12th dimensional aspect. So as you can imagine, those realms are so different. Even the way they communicate is just completely different to how we have been taught, in our human conditioning.
This is fascinating stuff. Now, would you do you activate, do you initiate those contacts, or do they kind of come in contact you spontaneously, and you're never prepared, you never know when?
It is a mixture. In the beginning, I was only having visceral contact through the plant ceremonies, but they gave me guidance to deepen my meditation practice and not to use the plant ceremonies with the modern medicine as a crutch. So I began to take my meditation practice more seriously, and I can communicate with them when I'm in a very relaxed and centered state. Sometimes when I have been ironing or washing the dishes, or something unusual, like something just mundane, they come through and I just start speaking light language, or some visuals coming or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So we will talk about the light language, as this is very interesting to me too. But now I have a question. You call yourself ET ambassador. Why did you call that name? Why did you decide on that term, ambassador? Don't you think the people, when they hear that name, ambassador, they shun away a little bit from that? Like, it's someone who is the link between those races and us. So why did you decide that word?
For me, it felt like it was most in resonance because it describes what I do. I'm a bridge between dimensions. So I am serving as an intermediary between this dimension and another dimension. And I was trying to find a term that was able to encompass that. And ET ambassador just seemed, to me, in a way, it actually seems grounded, although some people might not think it is. But you have to remember, many people are using this term, like Dr. Greer, who is also, known to be in this field of ufology and disclosure and contact. He actually trains people to specifically become ET contact ambassadors. So I think a lot of it has to do with our beliefs around what that means for us. And, I don't really focus on or put emphasis on what other people are doing or what that means for them. What's important is, does it resonate for me? And can I sit with that? And can I be with that and represent that?
That's actually very good, and I asked you this question, but actually look at my channel's name. It's Cosmic Agency. So I can say why agency? Who are you representing? Who are you connecting? But actually, when I was thinking of the name, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was trying to think of the name, some kind of a place that connects, the information from the higher realms, the information from a more metaphysical, spiritual side, and
yes.
and us here, humans on Earth. So cosmic agency. So I understand you in that regard. Yes, we should look at what it means to us and how we resonate with what we want to express. So next question I have. So let's go into the light language. Okay, what exactly is this light language, and what practical purpose does it serve? Not just to you, but to people you share it with.
Okay, so light language is considered an ancient inner technology that time has forgotten. You can think of it as a non-linear, multidimensional form of communication. You can think of it as the language of the heart, the language of soul, vibration, frequency. And in a practical sense, it's working on many layers. On one layer, it's encouraging humanity to move away a little bit, not completely, but to move out of their analytical minds into what we call heart awareness. And, it's a new form of communication that is very feeling based. And for a lot of people, it's serving as a kind of remembering, it's activating, it's initiating. It has a different effect on different people. It's here to help with healing and raising people's frequency. So some people might refer to it as an ascension tool. And, you know, it's really kind of affected, it can be very affected by how you are feeling in the moment when you're actually channeling it. So it's not like an earth language where you translate it word for word. And these guides have actually said to me, they encouraged me, they said to me, don't translate it like that for people. Give it and share it to people from your heart and let them feel and discover what it means for them. It can sound very familiar to some of the earth languages. So, you know, some people say it sounds Chinese or Arabic, some Native American dialects, and it can be expressed in many forms. So one is verbal, one is signed. Sometimes I do signed. Another is written. So my dominant expression is verbal, followed by written. So I do both. Normally people are dominant in one, and sometimes people can do all different ways to express it. So I can express it in different ways, but the dominant one for me seems to be verbally. And it can look similar to languages like Sanskrit, Asian languages, Sumerian. And it's funny because to some people it seems like it's something new, but it really isn't. You know, it's something that's very old, something that is ancient. You could say that it is what we used to call speaking in tongues, and people would do this in religious kind of settings or in shamanic practices. But sometimes that has become distorted, you know, because religion has certain structures and beliefs that it imposes on people sometimes. So this term, light language, is kind of breaking away from that.
Okay, but you said it's a language. Language is a form of communication between two or more people. So who are you communicating? I mean, is this the language given only to you and you channel it for your own purpose? Or are you using it to communicate with another person through subconscious? Or how does it serve other people apart from you?
Yes, so it is a language, but it is like, I'm trying to find the right words to describe it, because language normally, as we know it as humans, has a particular meaning and form, but the light language doesn't actually. There's so many varieties of it according to the person who's channeling it, according to what connections they have with particular civilizations, according to how they're feeling that day. That's why it almost seems like no two people are channeling exactly the same frequency, you know. And for me, what I learned is that it affects people in different ways. So for many people, it's affecting them on a subconscious level. It's stirring their multidimensional memory. Many people, when they hear it, they feel something in their heart. They receive a message through the frequency and the vibration. It happened just a few days ago because I was sharing with a man, a stranger that I met, and I started to share, and then he told me what it meant for him. And when I'm sharing it with other people, it can mean different things and have different effects. I mean, I remember one time I was sharing it with this lady who is actually having contact experiences with the Greys, and she just actually fell down onto the floor. It's quite dramatic, her response. And she did like this somersault forward, and her whole body was shaking, and everyone in the room was kind of scared, but I was just very calm and collected, just knowing that it affects people in different ways. So I went over and sat with her, and I just started to speak in the language, and I just did some healing work with her, and then she calmed down. And afterwards, she said that it felt like something very familiar to her, and that it was activating something inside of her. So it seems to affect people and have different uses for different situations.
So it's some sort of a activating mechanism that is in place, right? Like even
Yes.
like many things, like even crop circles serve as
Yes.
activating mechanisms
Of course.
on many levels.
And these beings actually told me that one of the larger purposes of the light languages, the reason why they're returning, is because people are encouraged to move more into their heart awareness, into their feelings, and also that it's serving as a bridge towards telepathic communication, which they have said that that's our natural nature, and that is how we have communicated in past civilizations. But in this current one, we have really lost a lot of the ancient wisdom. And so we actually label these things as freaky. We call them paranormal, which they aren't. It's just human potential, you know. It's not paranormal, it's super normal. But they have become unusual because we have forgotten that that is our capacity. So they're saying that it's like a bridge towards telepathic communication, because it's very feeling based as a whole.
So what do you recommend people doing? Because now on the screen, I'm going to actually, during this video, I'm going to show some of the writing that you have. Okay, it looks very beautiful. So what do you recommend people doing? Because you have writing, you have songs, right? So what do you recommend people doing with that writing? Just look at it, meditate on it, and or what exactly?
Well, it's going to be different for different people. So some people, I would encourage them to maybe, you know, do what feels in resonance. Like, do they want to, for instance, now I'm doing commissioned pieces of light language. I posted one that I've half finished for a client that was actually being attacked psychically by lower density beings. And when I showed him the stage one of the drawing, which is just black and white, pencil and pen drawing at the moment, he actually started crying, and he had a very big reaction to it, because it's been very challenging for him to deal with these experiences. He cannot speak to many people because they think he is crazy and, you know, all these other things. And the drawing that I did for him was actually reminding him that he is a creator. He is a multidimensional, radiant, infinite, loving being, and that he gets to decide what is coming into his experience and what is not.
Now, because you teach people and you are a coach, right? In the subject of realizing your life purpose and completing your life mission. Okay, how do we realign with our true life purpose? Question number one in that section of life purpose.
You know what we do? We experiment. We experiment with what feels in resonance with our hearts, because the clarity is coming when we take action. It does not come when we are just sitting in our head, which is what many of us are doing at different points in our life, you know. So we want to look at, well, okay, I don't know what I want to do, but what could be exciting, what could be interesting and curious for me, and also giving yourself permission to actually feel worthy of something better coming into your life, because many people are feeling undeserving of a life that is very beautiful and expansive, and all the different possibilities that are available to us, you know. And you know, different things again are going to resonate with different people. So a lot of it is about getting to know yourself. Well, who am I? You know, what do I enjoy? What is it that makes my heart sing? And how can I be more like the children? Because for me, the children is my wisest teachers, and they are very playful and forgiving, and, you know, I learn so much from them. So I think if we can really step more into this childlike wonder that we had as children, then we really are on course to realign with why we actually came here to begin with. And it's interesting because different spirits incarnate for different reasons. And what I have learned on my journey is that some beings actually come here with a more specific purpose than other beings. But it doesn't mean that they are better or someone else is worse. It's just, we are each unique in that way. That's why some people in their lifetime here on Earth, they have specific experiences that happen along their path because they actually chose to accomplish something specific here and they've forgotten about it. So that's why these guides come in, these other beings can come through to remind you why you actually came. So that thing that happened with me, it was not an accident, It's something that happened naturally and what we seem to think spontaneously. Can't say the word.
Yes. Spontaneously.
But when I think about it, I thought, but was that spontaneous? In fact, that was planned. That was a part of my agreement coming into this life, that I would have some kind of initiation that would help me get on track and remember why I actually came here.
Very good. I couldn't agree with you more on that. Now, I do have to ask a question though. Is it possible not to recognize and subsequently not to complete one's mission here in life, maybe because of some physical obstacles that happen in life, like for instance economic reasons? Okay, is it possible that people are not able to recognize and follow their mission because they are trapped within the economic limitation? In that case, what happens with that mission? Do they have to come back, or yeah?
Yes, everything you can imagine is possible because we are living in an infinite universe, and many beings we refer to as starseeds, they completely forget to the point where they're unable to get clear on why they actually came here. But you know what? The way I think about it and the way I have experienced it and received information is that we are infinite beings. So if we do not get it right in this lifetime, then of course there are going to be other timelines and other possibilities for us to come back. But I feel that, we also have free will. So if we don't want to go through with what we actually agreed to, that is also a possibility. Why not? Why would it be that we have to do something? These beings that I'm in contact with, they are full of so much love and compassion. It blows my mind. I wish for everyone to be able to experience that unconditional love, because they're not saying to me, well, you have to do this and you have to be ET ambassador and blah, blah, blah. They're just more encouraging me and trying to inspire me and guide me. They want me to be in touch with my own decisions and my own guidance, not to rely on them. They're just there to kind of give me a nudge sometimes in the right direction. Or maybe if I fall off the track, they try and get me back on track a little bit. But there had been times when I just completely ignored their guidance, which all of us do actually all the time.
Yeah.
And they don't hold that against us, So yes, it's possible that many people are forgetting their mission, but it's not the end of the world or anything. Life is continuing. Even when all life ceases to exist on this planet at some point, we will all continue on in different expressions and dimensions.
Maybe I'm thinking of the situations, and not so much like the circumstance and the cases when someone is forgetting, but more like, because you said we should follow our joy, our bliss when we feel excited. So what if someone does recognize the areas where they feel excited and where they would like to go and what they would like to pursue, but for example, because of the physical limitations, like for example, lack of money, they can't really fulfill that? Does that mean that their mission will not be fulfilled? Or is that apparent physical constraint part of the mission, perhaps?
Well, yes and no. Firstly, whatever you are saying to yourself is not possible is a self-imposed limitation. And we only have to look at history. There's so many wonderful beings that had everything stacked against them, not in their favor. But the human spirit is something that is very resilient and powerful, and they were able to overcome those conditions: lack of money, being born into poverty, sexual abuse, all the challenges we can think of. There's at least one person on this planet that has been through that and come out the other side brighter. So we have to ask ourselves the question, well, what is it that that person is believing about themselves and their reality? What agreements have they made with themselves? They're obviously believing something different to me or this next person who is really struggling. So it's about getting very curious and asking high quality questions, right? And what was the other part of the question?
Is it possible that seemingly what looks like a physical constraint and obstacle from fulfilling the mission, maybe it is part of the mission? So the limitation, the apparent limitation, could be part of the mission.
Yes, because what happens is these obstacles and challenges, they are serving again as initiations. So when we are going through a lot of strife and hardship and pain and struggle, it is cultivating a certain quality of character and consciousness within us. It's cultivating greater strength, resilience, inner resolve, creativity, all kinds of things, leadership. And without that initiation, without that challenge, that quality could not actually be cultivated. So it's a good way to actually ask yourself, well, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You ask yourself a more powerful question, and you ask yourself, what is trying to emerge through me as means of this condition, event, person, circumstance? And you'll get a different answer. It's very interesting.
Yes, no, definitely I agree with you. By the way, my questions sometimes are like from the perspective of the public, because I know there are a lot of people like in places, in poorer even areas, people who connect and they follow these subjects, but they can't follow the events. They can't come to the congresses. They can't participate in the conferences.
Yes.
So they feel kind of left alone, and they don't know what to do. And they also feel like they want to do something, but they feel they are not doing what they are supposed to be doing. So what do you say to these people?
The most important thing I feel is actually to be kind to yourself, because, a lot of the time, myself included, we can give ourselves a hard time. If something is not going according to how we think it should be going, our parents, society, all the rest of it. Because what good is it going to do if you are just beating yourself over the head, like, oh, you are a loser, you are this, you are that. You're just going to spiral down more. So I think it begins with a sense of having some kindness and compassion to yourself, and knowing that, you know what, this human life can be really tough and challenging. My guides, they actually make a joke sometimes, and they say, well, we're glad it's you down there and not us. And I'm like, well, thanks for that. So, a lot of these beings, they actually see it as a great honor for any entity to incarnate as a human on this earth at this time in history, because it's so challenging. There's so many distractions. But what I say to people is to take small, practical, actionable steps daily, So that can be like getting very aware of what your habits are. What are the habits that are very progressive and expansive and for you? And what are the ones that are, where you're procrastinating and not making most use of your time? Who are the people that are inspiring you and lifting you up? And who are the people you are hanging around who is bringing your energy down? And then beginning to make, small changes. And I would also say beginning to take big risks too. I'm someone who is a risk taker, who likes to experiment. And, sometimes I might fail, but at least I know that I tried something, right? Otherwise, we'll never know. Because many people that I meet, they just have a lot of fear in them. And I understand, because it's being created that way on purpose. This whole system, in a way, is motivated by fear. And some people say to me, well, how can I overcome the fear of stepping out, speaking about this topic, sharing about this topic, sharing about extraterrestrials? And I say, you know what? We're not meant to overcome the fear. I don't overcome the fear. I become friends with the fear. I do things daily that make me feel uncomfortable. That could be something like moving to the other side of the planet, which is what I did on a one-way ticket. It could be speaking at an ET conference, something that I did recently, or it could be sharing an experience that is very vulnerable for you. It could be something that to others seems small. It's getting used to doing things that scare you, make you feel uncomfortable, because what happens is you increase your threshold for that, And what happens with a lot of speakers, people you admire, people who are doing cool stuff, the fear does not go away, actually, for many of these people. But their relationship to the fear is what transforms. And they allow the fear to come into their body, to feel it, and then to be like, hey, you know what? That's cool. It was there, now it's gone. And then just continue. So it's not really about waiting for the fear to disappear. Because for many people, it never will. I get scared still when I'm sharing about different things,
No, that's awesome, and I feel exactly the same. And it's not about the fear disappearing, and it's also not about seeing, the last step of that staircase is to make that first step, and then you'll see the next step, and then the next step. You don't have to see the whole staircase right away. It's just about making that first step into the action, and taking a risk into what you feel you should be, and wherever the energy takes you, even if you don't understand it and don't. So beautiful words. I agree with you completely.
I would just like to add one last thing to that I feel is very useful. Is I would say to people to actually begin to create structures and containers in your life that are going to actually serve you making a shift in your life. Because what people are doing a lot of the time is they're not really supporting themselves. They're just waiting for something to happen. But what's important is to create some kind of structure. So whether that's, having meditation, having someone hold you accountable when you say you're going to do something. In the past, I was not following through with certain things that I said I was going to do. So in order to create accountability and leverage, I would actually say to my friend, if I don't do this thing that I say I'm going to do, I'm going to take you to the most expensive restaurant in town.
That's good.
Wine and dine you.
Oh, yeah.
So that served as a kind of motivation for me to get it done.
That's great.
So it's finding structures, because a lot of spiritual people, or people in this community that are heart-centered, they rebel against structure because they had someone early on in their life really overimpose it. But we only need to look at Mother Nature and we can see the structure is everywhere. It has a purpose. And we can actually have both structure and spontaneity together.
For sure. I'm discovering that you are actually very similar to me. I am very organized and methodical, but at the same time I'm very crazy and spontaneous and wild. And it kind of goes together for me. I can't explain it, but it does. Okay, in Honovi, I met you here actually in September. There was a World Ufology Congress here in Montserrat, and you were one of the speakers. One of the speakers was also Cory Good, an important character here in this channel. A lot of people follow his story, are very interested in him. So you became quite a friend, could you say, of Cory Good? What would you say about him? What are your thoughts? Aren't you worried that he could be mind controlled, etc.?
A lot of people is asking me about Cory because yes, we have been becoming more friends. Getting to know each other. I spent a bit of time with him at the Ufology World Congress in Montserrat, but I first met him at Contact in the Desert in California earlier this year. And what I say to people actually, because I'm not here to convince anyone, that's not my job, and I don't believe that it's always a productive thing to do to try and convince someone of something. because each person has their own, beliefs about a particular person or situation. So I just say to people, the way I do it is I have certain feelings. We each have certain feelings that come into our heart, into our gut, into our intuition when we are interacting with another. You can walk into a room and immediately you will sense a bad energy, a bad feeling, and you can't put your finger on it. And I can honestly say, hand on my heart, I never had any of those feelings when I was with Cory. Whenever I was in his company, it was very genuine, authentic sharing. And for me, I think he actually is quite haunted by some of the experiences that he has had, because when we were in Spain, he actually shared some personal things, which I don't want to actually share on this call, because I don't want to, break that confidence. But he was sharing certain things, and it made me realize, wow, this man, he has been through a lot, and it takes a lot of courage to actually, go out there and share this very phenomenal story. Of course, it's very amazing. These inner earth beings, the secret space program, these blue avians, it's all pretty like a science fiction novel, right? But I think if you are having some of these experiences yourself, multidimensional experiences, you can see how it can be a reality. And if you are following Cosmic Disclosure with David Wilcock and Cory, there's many other people that actually back Cory. And if you actually carefully listen to his message, the core of it is not even about the secret space program, actually. That's like the surface. The core of it is about forgiveness. That's profound, because not many people are talking about that, Many people are pointing the finger of blame. It's their fault. They need to be punished. They're the bad guys. It's good versus bad, evil versus light, all this kind of thing. But at the core, Cory is, you can see, you can feel and hear that he is interested in serving others, helping them to get in alignment and to raise their consciousness, because that's what the Blue Avians, they are sharing with Cory. So you just have to ask yourself, okay, he's sharing these radical experiences, but what's the core message? Is it about fear, or is it coming from a place of service? And you will receive your answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your insight and your personal feelings about this. So yeah, okay, I have two more questions, and then maybe we should let you go. What benefits, because you are talking a lot about the multidimensional self, what benefits are there to tapping into our multidimensional self? Practically, yes. Here on Earth, why should we tap into our multidimensionality?
I think for me, one of the main reasons is because we can really experience reality as it really is, experientially, and not just read about it in some book or hear some wonderful teacher sharing and talking about it, because at the end of the day, they are just sharing their perspective, which is unique to them, right? And so when we open ourselves up to not only realizing but experiencing ourselves as multidimensional, so many possibilities are opened up. Like so many people lose their fear of death because they realize they are infinite and that consciousness is non-local, and that it is continuing, after death. Some people open up to communication with non-terrestrial star beings or extraterrestrials, whatever name you want to give it. And that opens up a whole new horizon, different perspectives that we have maybe forgotten, with a lot of guidance and love. And, there's just so many different possibilities that enter our reality when we are tapping into our multidimensional nature. We're not identifying so strongly in this human form. We're honoring it, because you can go the opposite way and completely detach, from this human form, which is certainly not what these beings want me or other people. They don't encourage that. It's more a case of being here, being active citizen, being a part of this earth system. and at the same time honoring our multidimensional nature. Because what's happened in our society is they've gone the other way, where they've honored their physical form too much. They've overly identified with its physical form. So it's like what you were saying earlier, having a bit of this and a bit of that, and having it all come together, and not going to extremes, right? A lot of people in spirituality, they don't really want to be fully participating in this human life because they think it's materialistic. But for me, the materialistic is just one dimension of being here. It's all meant to be experienced, not to be disowned. Because remember that we each chose purposely to come here. Because we live in an infinite universe, so we could have chosen somewhere else, But we chose here, this time, this place, this country, this agenda, right? This challenge. So, it opens up your mind and your heart in a very profound way, I feel, when you connect with your multidimensional template.
What is the greatest and the most important message that has been transmitted to you by your star families who you are contacting with? The most important.
I think the most important is the most simplest, that they are always saying that I am loved and I am supported, and that whatever I am experiencing, it doesn't define my worth or who I am. My job, my status, my relationships. They're sending me so much love that it makes me cry, really. And they always say to me, never forget this feeling. Never forget this feeling. Because of course I do sometimes forget that feeling. I do forget that my worth is not connected with certain things that I achieve and do. We all forget that. Even those of us who are in contact with these beings, we all have our, slip-ups or whatever you want to call it. And they always say to me that if I can just remember this feeling, that I can do, be, have anything. And it's this feeling, I kind of call it, I call it them transmitting or sharing with me a love bomb. Because they literally, their energy is they're just blasting so much love, but it's a different kind of love that we are used to in our human life. It's very unconditional. It's like I could do the worst thing, the most heinous crime, and they would still have that love for me. I could completely ignore everything they're saying and tell them that I hate them, but it would not matter. They would have that love still, regardless. And for me, this is a very profound message, and it encourages also us to view others in a different way, because we're very quick to judge and we're very quick to punish, but it's not how these other beings are thinking. All is ultimately forgiven, because we are each playing these roles when we're here on Earth.
Very nice. Honovi, I will have many more questions for you, and maybe we can meet some other time, because it's like a Pandora box for me. Every time I talk with someone, more questions come, and I will be here all night.
We can't stop ourselves. This goes on and on.
Yes, it does. I do want to let you go because I know you have, you have other things to do than just being here with me. But no, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you from my heart.
Thank you so much. And yes, and any last words? Maybe your last message.
Be yourself, because everyone else is taken. Don't be afraid to go against the grain. Now is the time that each of us has been waiting for. Everyone was talking about 2012. Well, 2012 is here now in 2017. Many more changes are going to come. And the message from these beings and from myself is to trust that there is something wonderful that is trying to emerge and be born on this planet. But when something new is trying to come into this world, it shakes up everything, the old system. So it seems like a lot of chaos and destruction, and it seems like a lot of fear. But you must trust and know that the reason that's happening, something else is trying to come to the front, and each of you is a seed for that potential.
Very nice. Okay, Honovi, thank you very much again.
Thank you, Gosia.
Stay on the line. Don't connect yet. I'm just going to say goodbye to the viewers. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. Good night.